The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Welcome to it, Thursdays here at Hail Varsity. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, and you. Hope you're doing all right. Get the football fiesta party going. Your first night of football and extends all into the weekend. We'll dive into some college football playoff. More importantly, we'll talk about some of the portal additions for Nebraska. Some more news coming down about Killebrew, the defensive back. That's official. Who else is Nebraska targeting and tracking? Couple of names to lay out for you. Numbers to dial up at 489-1240, 489-1240, 800-825-5865. Can email Chris at hailvarsity.com. We'll get our starting five shout-outs. Also, dive in to some of your comments in the stream. Can watch the show, Hail Varsity YouTube channel. Like and subscribe there. Hail Varsity Radio Twitter at HVarsity Radio and along the Hail Varsity Radio network. So, Brandon Vogel going to be with us from Counter Reed in about 15 minutes in hour two. Gary Barnett, get Coach Barty's take on the playoffs and, what year three should look like if you're Nebraska. And Elijah and I will dive into that. Interested to get your feel for Nebraska, where they can be or where they should be a year from now. What are we talking about after this roster flip, after this 105 roster, and, of course, upgrades and changes theoretically on staff and in the locker room. So something we'll try and tackle. Danny Burke with us, Burke's Best Bets, burksbeat.com. Get his thoughts on some of the numbers floating around for the playoff games and, of course, the NFL playoffs. Elijah, what's good, man? How you doing? You, I don't want to say lucked into, but you are all sorts of loaded up with Girl Scout cookies, dude.
I kind of lucked into them.
That's okay.
Well, do you know why they came to me?
Well, I heard the story.
So E-True Hollywood, there's another radio station that is also housed in the same studio in which I currently
it's quite
sit.
frankly to your left.
Yeah, it's over here. Right now, Gives You Hell by the All-American Reject.
Okay.
It's a music station.
It's a mix station.
Yeah, and it's sitting in here to my left. When
Elijah spills his vodka, 80s mania is in danger.
Actually, it wasn't vodka. I did spill a Dr. Pepper in the soundboard one time. I never told anybody that.
It was Dr. Pepper and Southern Comfort.
It was not. I was in here till like 9 p.m. trying to clean up the board that I just spilled a full Dr. Pepper into. No one's ever heard that story before, so I hope there's no one of importance listening that's going to fire me over that. But that was
all right.
now. Anyway,
no one's listening anyway.
There's another radio station in here. They were sent Girl Scout cookies. As I also sit in this studio, they kind of fell onto me. So I have some Thin Mints and some...
You get the coconut, whatever they're called?
The Caramel Delights.
Yes.
Yeah, so I got Caramel Delights and Thin Mints to my left, which are my two favorite Girl Scout cookies. Yes.
Okay.
And did you know, I just learned this, that the Caramel Delights and the Samoans are they're the same thing, same recipe, but they're just made in different factories.
Yeah.
That's why they're called different things.
Okay.
So one factory makes them and calls them Caramel Delights, however you want to pronounce that. We're not going to get into that argument today. And then the other factory makes the Samoans.
Okay.
So the more you know.
Do you throw the Thin Mints in the freezer? Or the fridge?
I've been known to. I tend to lose my patience and just want to munch down on three. So
okay.
So I've been known to in the past. I don't think it's a necessary step.
Wonderful. All right. Well, that is Girl Scout Cookie 101. Elijah is hoarding all of them. You keep them away from me.
I will be fat and happy for the next couple days. I was telling you this morning, I got home last night and made myself smash burgers.
Okay.
It was one smash burger for myself. And as you do, you use the 73-27 ground beef. Very greasy, especially considering I did a toasted Texas toast bun.
Ooh, glorious.
And then I caramelized some onions.
Okay.
And that was on the burger as well. So that I got enough materials for another burger for myself tonight, plus Girl Scout cookies. I might gain 20 pounds by next week.
You just give her hell, dude. I'm happy for you. Way to be. I will figure it out without any temptation in front of me. So we'll talk about Nebraska's newest defensive back per the portal. What's Nebraska's likelihood here in getting another wide receiver? That is also in play. What are you laughing about?
Great Red Shark wants to correct us and say Samoas is the coconut cookie. Samoans is the tribe of people indigenous to the South Pacific.
Thank you.
Thank you for that correction.
You know what I meant, Great Red Shark, but it was no intentional offense.
I learned today that they weren't the same word. I always wondered what the connection was. I was like, coconut, South Pacific, I guess.
Both? Can we say this, Great Red Shark? Both are awesome?
Yes, absolutely.
Right? Can we say both are awesome? Is that all right?
Both are needed in a nose tackle, right?
Well, right, right. I don't know that that's on the old meal plan for nose tackles, but they'll crush them.
Hey, you need weight somehow.
Yeah, sure, right? Protein or Girl Scout cookies. Is that bad weight or good weight? Yeah, so let's get our shout-outs going, shall we, on this Thursday? Uncle Larry, good to have you, Uncle Larry, in first. KP, checking in from across the river. Jeff Snitley, part of the Boulder Peace Treaty, back at it. Good to have you, Mr. Snitley. Coach Brandon here. Says semi 1, 3 hours, 15 minutes away. That was an hour ago, so 2 hours and 15 minutes away. Captain is here. Captain, you are right on, as he is saying thoughts and prayers to all of our California friends.
Absolutely.
For sure. That's awful going on out there with all the wildfires. Yeah, the Dave is in and talking about the new cornerback commit. Arlo is here. At NASCAR Eric, good to have you in, NASCAR Eric. Says love that Javen Wright is back for year number 7. Love the linebacker room already. This is bonus. Getting Javen back with all his experience. You want him to stay healthy because he's the epitome of perseverance with, his first 3 seasons just battling through how this past season started out for him, and he was still able to grind it out for 9 games this season for Nebraska at linebacker. Love his body type and hybrid ability, great size. And, finished the Pinstripe Bowl with a team-high 8 tackles. Anonymous checks in. And Anonymous says, hopefully Elijah Pritchett is better at pass blocking than Elijah Herbel. Is at predicting Oregon versus Ohio State. Look at Anonymous coming in hot.
What?
You already owned that the other day on the Average Joe pod, didn't you?
Well, I'm doing radio, not football, so it wasn't that good of an offensive lineman. Just a bit of an unnecessary jab.
I'll say this. I remember calling your games in high school. You're good.
It helps whenever you're next to a Division I offensive lineman.
I wasn't going to say that the Gerald Foster was your mate on the left side.
Gerald Foster to Bryson Williams, that was nice to have.
Yeah, but that's fine. That's fine.
But
they put you at tackle.
Eventually. They started me at center, and they went, this ain't working out.
Son.
It's a little Cam Jurgens with my snaps. Cam Jurgens back in the day.
Oh, no.
It wasn't my fault.
Oh, why?
We don't need to open up the yearbook too much, but they moved another guy to center who was like a 4-year starter at Doane. Fantastic player. Alex Bruner was his name. They moved him from guard to center. He wasn't as good at snapping as me. So the quarterbacks got used to bad snaps.
So there was quarterbacks that made it all okay.
And then whenever they got good snaps, they didn't know how to handle it. That's what I'll say.
It's it was a surprise.
So they moved me to tackle.
It was a real.
But yeah, no, the jab was unnecessary. I know it. I'm in radio. I'm not a 6'6", 325-pound giant human being that can move well. That's not me.
QB1 Ace in says the Snowmageddon is real. It's hitting us. Wish I could take a picture. GBR, it is nasty down in Dallas with the snowfall. Mike in Cali checks in. Mike is in burning Cali, as he puts it. Stay safe, dude. For sure. More comments coming. as we get to more of the stream. Tuck is here. Brent is here. Robert is here. Tim is in. Let's talk. Steve, good to have you as well. All right, Nebraska's defensive back pickup earlier today, Marquise Groves-Killebrew. So here's what you get. You get a guy that won a starting job at Arizona last year. Good size, and at 6 foot 185, had a sack, had a boatload of snaps. The teeter-totter part of this is just the fact that he's now on school number 4. All right, so he's a guy that started out briefly, 3 games, and then bounced from A&M to Louisville, played 4 games at Louisville, and then found his way to Arizona. 10 games for the Cats, 26 tackles, a sack, 4 pass breakups. What I like here, obviously 2 years to play at Nebraska. We've seen good things, and I'm not calling him Sierra Wright, but you've seen a change of scenery do wonders, and a change of scenery with a Ballyhooed High School prospect, which Groves-Killebrew also was. We're talking a top-level high school recruit. And that worked well for Sierra Wright, and he was kind of a late addition and probably played the best secondary of anybody for Nebraska last year. Really got comfortable. So 2 years to play. And the thing, too, just watching a little film here with Killebrew, he's pretty versatile, Elijah, along with the size. He's played corner, can play nickel, and did a little bit. He's cross-trained a little bit. It's not that he is a safety for you, but it's not going to be foreign to him. He can play some safety as well, or at least has a little experience there. So I like that for Nebraska. We're talking 4 new options in the secondary with Marshall, with Kahn, with Rhett, and now with Groves-Killebrew, on top of the young kids that I think we all really kind of like, that spent red shirt time this season, and what you do have coming back, whether that's a Singleton and a Sierra Wright. So, again, it's all about options for Nebraska.
Yeah, and one thing I've noticed here, we all know that the defensive back room was not what it needed to be in 2024. They were good, but they tended to have busts at inopportune times, or just generally speaking, they had busts on the back end. They didn't seem to be
communication was off.
They didn't all seem to be on the same page, whether that be with their position coach, their defensive coordinator, each other. Doesn't really matter. They weren't all on the same page. One thing I have noticed with these additions, and I don't think it can be just swept under the rug how John Butler came in last season. The fact that he steps in 3 weeks before fall camp and now he's the defensive backs coach, and that is all on him. Have you noticed that every single one of Nebraska's defensive back additions stands taller than 6 foot?
Yes, and
I'm not. And it's a bit of a trend.
Are you targeting somebody that is under 6 foot in Nebraska secondary currently?
No. I am just saying I think there is a stylistic change that is happening in the defensive back room right now. So you talk about the young guys in the room, and yeah, you hope for development, but I think there is a different eye for what you want in your defensive backs from Evan Cooper to now John Butler. And I think you're seeing it in the portal, because Nebraska already had a pretty big defensive back room coming into this offseason. They're adding more. I think one of the things you're seeing is a guy in John Butler getting a defensive back room that operates how he wants it to operate, which is kind of the NFL prototypical taller, rangier guys, long arms. That's the way the NFL is moving, and that's kind of what I'm seeing here with what John Butler's bringing into the defensive back room, is guys that kind of fit the mold of what he wants in a defensive back a little bit more than maybe the guys he had in the room this past season.
And a guy that we love his spirit, we love his fight. He has found ways to stay on the field because he does it on the practice field, and he gives it to you to his maximum effort. In Malcolm Hartzog. Okay, Malcolm Hartzog throughout his career has also been targeted. Been targeted on third down, been targeted in some key moments, and he just doesn't flinch. Doesn't always win on those downs, but he doesn't flinch. But what you do have right now is Nebraska with 4 new options, 4 recruited options, and then some carryover, the guys that started for you last year. So and it might not be Malcolm, it could be somebody else that's having a bad day. Guess what? You can make a change. You can sit somebody that's having a bad day. You can bring in somebody and tries somebody else new, and maybe from a physical standpoint matches up better. To your point, he's 6 foot. He's not under 6 foot. He's longer ranger. He's more physical, or there's more physical ability or gifts to try and combat some of those wideouts you're going to be facing in conference. It's as simple as that. And the key trick here is to make sure that Marquise Groves Killebrew does. I don't know that he can find a school 5, but he doesn't. The key thing is to keep him on your roster, based on his history,
and to get him on the field too. Yeah, get him on the field.
Go earn that that spot in the secondary for sure.
But another thing I think to note with the defensive back room is, as I kind of talk about this trend of them getting a little bit bigger, is did you notice who the young guy, we didn't hear about him much all year, that got significant snaps against Boston College?
Donovan
Jones.
Yes.
Also a little taller.
Yeah, Donovan's a big guy. Good move.
And we thought of him as a safety. He was playing corner in the bowl game. I think that's just the stylistic change you're going to be seeing this offseason as Nebraska's getting taller, rangier in that defensive back room.
Well, Nebraska had Pete on campus yesterday, the offensive tackle from New Mexico State. How are things trending with him? And also with Nebraska, Jonah Wilson, the wideout from Houston. Is he on the radar? Yes. Is he somebody that is another addition to the wide receiver room for Nebraska? Those are two names to keep an ear out for as Nebraska continues to add to their roster. What does it mean for 2025? We'll tackle that with Brandon Vogel next with Hail Varsity.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for hanging out. Thursday edition. It's Hail Varsity. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. We welcome in Brandon Vogel with Counterread, counterread.com. So we get you set for some playoff football tonight. Thoughts on the Big Red at Brandon L. Vogel, where you find him on Twitter. Get his book with John Cook, Dream Like a Champion. Vogues, it's quite a run of football, man. We are talking Thursday through Sunday, little NFL, a couple of big-time college showdowns in the semis. Are you geared up? Are you going smash burger with jalapeno sauce? Apparently that was missing on Elijah's smash burger last night. Nick suggested some jalapeno onion dip for the topping of that smash burger. Bugs, you're no stranger to a good burger, I don't think.
And let me take you through the toppings on mine. First off, Vogel, the bun was toasted Texas toast. And then it was a double smash burger patty, each a little under a quarter pound. So that was weighty, but it's the 73-27 ground beef, so a lot of that fat cooks off and it becomes lighter. And then I went caramelized onions in between the patties. That was the only vegetable, along with mayo and barbecue sauce.
Okay. That sounds pretty solid. I like keeping burgers as simple as possible, and I'm pretty classic when it comes to that. So I'm a pickle onion guy. Mm-hmm. American cheese, of course, the cheese built for burgers. And then the thing that's always difficult for me. So I'm not a mayo guy. I haven't found the right sauce yet. That's the key for me. So often I'll go with barbecue sauce. It's just a little more interesting than ketchup. But that's the hole in my resume. The missing part of my burger repertoire at this point is, what sauce do I go with for somebody who doesn't like mayo? I'm open to suggestions.
How do you feel about aioli and mayo are pretty similar? Are you also out on aioli?
No, I'm more open to aioli, and like if somebody gives me a burger with mayo on it, like I'll eat it. Just
Vogues is going to take Vogues is going to lift the bun, sees mayo, and throws the burger back at him.
Take this away from me.
Go with the peanut butter. The old P.O. Pears burger was so money with the peanut butter, the bacon, the red onion. I imagine, I didn't stop to look, but I think there was ketchup and mustard on it too, wasn't there?
I don't think so.
No, but there was pickle and lettuce. It's been years. It's been years, but the Pears burger was undefeated.
The famous burger spot in West Lafayette, Louisiana or Indiana. Should you ever attend a Purdue game, is Triple X Burger, and they have a peanut butter burger that is quite good.
Okay, all right. Well, maybe that's a reason to go see if we can't get scared by Purdue Pete. And I've always tried to stay away from that roadie. Maybe I'll cave in.
We did hit that incredible burger spot in Iowa City, though.
Yeah.
Stella, there it is. Stella. It's right down the street from the stadium.
7 below wind chill, and we're all just frigidly marching across the way. Vogues.
I get to sports action now.
Let's do that. Everyone's like, shut up, Burger Goons, and talk football. I'll get your thoughts on some of the portal additions in a moment, but Nebraska is resetting. You've got new staff. You have new players. And you have gone full and all in on the adaptation, right? This is Prime. This is Signetti. This is how everyone else in college football is acting and living. And Nebraska has the resources with 1890 to do it, and the guy in Matt Rhule to communicate and connect with portal, high school, JUCO, whatever. He's able to connect with players, as is his staff. So a year from now, what are we talking about? Are we talking about missed opportunities? Are we talking about guys not living up to their potential? Are we talking about, hey, it was a good year and Nebraska got closer to the goal line, so to speak, where they're back in contention? What do you think the future holds?
Yeah, I mean, certainly the hope is they got closer to the goal line. And that's about as far as I'd be willing to go with 2024, big picture-wise. And a lot of that depends on what they're able to do through roster turnover. And it's much different than it was in 2023, transitioning to 2024. Because the story then was mostly about how many guys they retained and didn't lose. Mm-hmm. And that's not the case this year. So it's a little bit more volatile this time around, because at this stage in the transfer portal, like, my personal feeling is Nebraska is like further filling in holes. So So when you look at Pritchett coming from Alabama, he played at Alabama, which is something significant. He probably slots in as a presumed starter, assuming nothing else or nothing goes awry there. Like, is he a all Big Ten caliber starter? Like, I'm not ready to go there yet. And it's a little bit the same with Graves Killebrew. And this was the same with both of these most recent additions for Nebraska. Have felt a lot like Sierra Wright coming from USC, a guy who had played at a program like everyone recognizes, and then didn't play for a little bit. That was Sierra Wright's story. So when they're coming to Nebraska, it becomes like, well, I see the experience, but it feels like a little bit of a coin flip in terms of exactly what you're getting. And that feels about right, I think, for adding players in the portal at this point. Now, obviously, that the portal is still refreshing with guys coming off of bowl games, but this feels like numbers to me for the most part for Nebraska.
It's Brandon Vogel with us here talking Nebraska transfer portal additions. We'll get to college football playoff here in just a second, but Vogel, when you look at the two most recent additions, feels like Pritchett's the one they need to hit on, right? You need a right tackle. They found a guy that, to me, feels slightly more developmental than you would have liked, but still a guy that played all 12 games at Bama last season. Needs some work, but it's a guy that I think you need to get right. It's a guy that needs to be your starting right tackle whenever you look at the depth chart as it stands right now, correct?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think the key point there is a little bit more developmental than you would hope for a guy who started 12 games at Alabama. I'm sure you guys talked about it. Like, we know what the PFF grades were for him, for whatever stock you put in that. But, Nebraska has been in a unique situation where, it signed some high-profile guys, 5 recruiting classes ago, and they've kind of manned your tackles, whether they are ready to or not at that early stage. When you look at Ben Hart and Corcoran, for the most part, also mixing in some Prohaska, they need somebody at least at right tackle, maybe at both tackles. So you're hoping for a plug and play option. Pritchett at least has the experience of going against top level talent in a major conference that makes you feel like, well, you can put him out there. Again, it kind of comes down to, like, are we talking about, potential all conference players there? I think that would be like best case scenario. That's probably not the baseline expectation here. But a need's a need, and you've got to find somebody to man those spots.
From a need/want or an uncertainty standpoint for you, is it still both lines, or is it both lines and running back? I mean, Nebraska's done work at linebacker. They've done work in the secondary. They've done work at wide receiver. They've not stood pat at offensive line. They're still trying to get another tackle on top of what's back and what's been microwaving. So the other spot, they've even got a portal quarterback, and then a sixth-year guy, and Grahamstad coming back. So running back and offensive and defensive line, are you feeling like maybe Nebraska has some more moves to make on the lines of scrimmage, defensive line-wise? Did we lose him? He's pondering. Vogues, do we have you?
Oh, he's back.
I'm back.
Okay. That was a long. Hold on a minute. Let me go through. Okay, fire away.
I think on either line, it's one of those spots where you almost look at anybody that goes in, and today's college football allows you to have a staff that helps with that, just to evaluate and see what you see. So I think Nebraska would continue we know they have visits upcoming with at least an offensive lineman. Continue to look there. In terms of like biggest place to still make a splash, I think in the portal, it probably is running back to me. Like, I think you could use you could use another body in that room, and that's one that might have to wait until the post spring football transfer window, when guys get some more information. Like, I think you're the prospective pool of running backs might be a little bit deeper at that point, or a little bit more about what he had.
Bogues, we got a couple minutes here. We might need about 2 minutes of overtime from you. What do you believe right now in the world of college football? Is Big Ten, is the conference king? Has it caught up to the SEC? Has it passed the SEC? Or is this just another year, a different year where, all right, the SEC has done it for 13 out of 17 seasons when it comes to a champion, 5 different champions. The Big Ten's working on back-to-back championships. Is there still a tug of war for who's the best league, or do you think it's the Big Ten?
No, I'm not ready to go there yet. I'm the sort of person who would probably need 13 out of the next 17 to declare that even. Though it is, college football has changed a lot. So I think some of that has certainly helped the Big Ten. Like, I think contextually, it's been good. It's been a good narrative for Big Ten teams and just teams in the North generally, which is needed. Would I be surprised if it happens again? Yes, next year? Yeah, I would. So I would expect the SEC to be right in the mix again. But like, contrast that with where we've been over the previous 20 years, where it was just like, oh, there's the SEC and there's basically Ohio State. It doesn't feel that way right now. So that's a significant step.
Vogues, hang tight. We'll get some predictions from you on the other side, okay?
Yep.
All right, more Brandon Vogel on the way.
Hail Varsity Radio is live. Now, back to Schmitty.
Schmitty's a great guy, but he don't have a brain.
And Elijah.
You want me to speak? When I point at you, yeah.
On Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you, it's Hail Varsity. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Brandon Vogel, counterread.com. Some overtime with us. Kobe is in. Ken checks in. Black Hills Brennan is here, so he doesn't get fined. God love you. Red Wine checks in as well. Says Penn State needs to win a game they ain't supposed to. Vogues, it feels like eons ago when Penn State had the old blocked kick against Ohio State, and voila, it's 11-2. It's Rose Bowl, and it's conference champion. That was James Franklin's third year. They've been solid. They've been top 10 good. They've been top 15 recruiting class good. They've been putting people into the NFL, but they just don't beat Michigan or Ohio State. It kind of sounds like the team in the old Big Eight that couldn't get by Colorado or get by Oklahoma. You're right on the doorstep every year.
Yeah, they are. I think at some point in the offseason last year, I wrote that Penn State was really in the Pelini zone, which, you know, for us as people who follow Nebraska, like, remember well, but like probably even like a half step above that, in that Penn State could do everything except kind of get over the Ohio State, Michigan hump, whatever it happened to be in that given year. And, you know, the way things broke with the college football playoff, this isn't to diminish anything that Penn State's done, but, you know, they got SMU and Boise State and had a good path. Like tonight's a real challenge for them. Like Notre Dame's playing as well as anybody over the past, well, basically since losing to Northern Illinois. So we'll see. This is another one of those games of like, hey, James Franklin, like if you want to disprove that, like go beat somebody that you're not supposed to beat, and we'll see if they can do it.
It's Brandon Vogel with us here. And Vogel, before we get to Texas and Ohio State tomorrow night, we do need to get your thoughts. We'll see if they do it. Do you think that Penn State gets it done? Do they win a game that I think the odds have shifted now? There's been some flu cases reported at Notre Dame.
Brutal flu running through the Notre Dame locker.
So I think it's now a pick'em still. James Franklin and pick'ems. I would consider that a game he's not supposed to win. So what do you think happens tonight?
Yeah, I would still like that's a little bit troubling. I mean, it seems like, I think the availability and health of Abdul Carter for Penn State is another big piece of the puzzle here. Like I would still lean Notre Dame, just because I think for, you know, some of the reasons we're discussing right now, like I think they have a bit of a coaching edge, and they played really well. So I would still take Notre Dame. And then, you know, in the other matchup, I think like most people, Texas has looked a bit shaky so far in the playoff. Like they've gotten it done. It's no discredit to them. But Ohio State's just kind of been on another plane and started to look like the team I think a lot of us thought they'd kind of look like all year. So I think it's chalk, but I think we're headed towards Notre Dame, Ohio State.
That makes me smile because it's not a rematch, because I think we've seen the Penn State versus Ohio State movie too many times where it's a one score to a 10-point ball game, and it's paint drying, right? You get an early lead and you just kind of suffocate Penn State, and Ohio State wins it, right? It's pretty good football from a defensive standpoint. But
it's a pretty good football from a 1982 point of view.
Thank you. Right. You just kind of hang on for dear life. Texas, the matchup, Texas and Ohio State are similar, where they're NFL dudes and athletes, but from a meat grinder standpoint, they're just not smash mouth like Notre Dame is smash mouth. So that matchup's all right. I think Ohio State's on fire. They're so good right now, and they're not apologizing anymore for what they are, and that's skill. That's finesse. You can't catch what you can't. I should say you can't hit what you can't catch. So I think Texas, despite having home field here, sorta gets beat by Ohio State, and I'm there. I don't want to live in a world where I see Ohio State and Penn State to whine for 2 seconds about the college football national title game.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I mean, even then, like I'd be somewhat interested in it. I mean, the great thing about the 4 teams that are left is I don't see a matchup out of that group that's like bad, just because it would be a bit new, like Michigan Washington was a year ago. Minus Ohio State Penn State goes to the bottom of the list because we already saw that this year. But otherwise, you're looking at intriguing matchups almost everywhere you turn.
Vogel, will the fix be in from the folks at ESPN to ensure it's not Big Ten versus Big Ten in the national championship game? Do you subscribe to the notion that ESPN is in the SEC's pocket and is unbiased because of that?
Well, I would normally not subscribe to that, but based on some of the ESPN commentary that we saw after the first round of playoff games, Indiana, the whole thing, like. Can't totally root against it. There was a moment, one of these Sunday mornings, like I watched the ESPN, college football recap that they try to do in an hour on Sunday mornings, and I was actually like shocked. It was the day that it was the day after Nebraska beat Wisconsin, and I was shocked at how little Big Ten content there was on that. I think it was maybe that was the same day as Ohio State Indiana, and that was like the lead item, and then. Like virtually nothing for 45 minutes, and they're like, "Oh, here's some other Big Ten games." So
it was bad. I mean, it's just been it's been bad, and I don't know that the fellas over at Fox go out of their way, but if it's a big game, they'll highlight it. There'll be a 12th hour substitution if Ohio State gets knocked off and Penn State gets knocked off. Someone will fly in Bama or Ole Miss, disguised in the Irish uniform. At halftime, the unveiling will occur.
No, Texas will just become the SEC All-Stars.
Right, yes, right. Vogues, what can folks find out with Counter Read? Tell us about what you and Aaron Sorensen are up to, and how can folks get on board?
Yeah, you can head over to counterread.com. I've got some of these playoff thoughts coming after these 2 semifinal games. Still yet this week. Aaron had a great story today, kind of looking at pro volleyball, which is highly linked to Nebraska volleyball, of course, in the state with both pro leagues that are currently operating, calling Omaha home. So you can go check that out now. And there's plenty of transfer portal stuff to continue to dig into, and we'll have some more basketball coming as that season ramps up.
All right, Brandon Vogel at Brandon L. Vogel on Twitter, counterread.com. Vogues will holler Saturday. Appreciate you much. Thanks for an extended version of the Thursday stop by. Appreciate you.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
There he is, Brandon Vogel with us. We'll wind down this first hour. And Gary Barnett coming up in hour 2 with Hail Varsity.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Well, we'll have to fire up a steak and a beer bet in 1 hour for Notre Dame and Penn State. Saw a pretty good picture tweeted out with the Rezak boys and the Proud Papa DJ and Jason Peter getting ready for the Orange Bowl. So I don't know if he's on site down there, but a little local tie with 2 greats from West Side that are part of that Notre Dame squad. Of course, X-Man Xavier Watts patrolling the secondary. So maybe your rooting interests are for the Irish and their chance, man. You know what's crazy is Notre Dame is brand-wise is they're like the Yankees, right? They're like the Lakers. They're like, your Big 4, Big 5 brands. And they have not won a national championship since the Fighting Lou Holtzes of 1988.
That's wild.
Really, really awesome Notre Dame squad in '88, one of my favorite football teams. But they got to the playoffs under Brian Kelly, but then he bounced for LSU, probably whining a little bit about, well, it's hard to win in the northern schools. Well, 3 of the 4, man, are loaded up. Don't kid yourself with this playoff format and on-site games moving forward, especially if they expand the playoff. The weather is a wonderful equalizer.
Well, it's also
Tennessee wanted nothing to do with 4-degree Columbus to open the playoffs.
No, well, you mentioned the fact how long it's been since Notre Dame won a title. It's been since '86 since Penn State won a title.
I know.
It's kind of wild with these proud brands that it's been that long.
It's one thing to say you won a title, but they've been in contention, and then Notre Dame went a while. Penn State had the season that they got shut out because they would have got stomped in '94 by Nebraska. Mm-hmm. We like to say they went undefeated and didn't matter because they got to go whack Oregon in the Rose Bowl. So, but no, Penn State's been right up there. They've been on the verge, just not able to get over the hump, and we'll see if they get back to the title game. How about Ryan Day's life if you can't beat Michigan and then James Franklin pulls an okey doke on you? Now 2-9 against you in the overall, but the one win launched Penn State's resurgence, and then they get you in the title game.
Well, we talked about bad matchups. I don't want to overlook Texas for Ohio State, but Ohio State just seems like a bad matchup for Texas. Because what Texas gets you with is they have overwhelming speed at their skill position spots.
That's what Ohio State has.
And yeah, Ohio State's the one team, like, I might take Texas over Penn State. Yeah. I don't think I'd take Texas over Notre Dame.
No.
I might take Texas over Penn State, but then they get Ohio State, who I think they have the worst chance against.
Oh, I think it's a horrible matchup for Texas. I think Ohio State is out there to silence all the hate they got after Michigan, and they made Oregon look silly. They've got Jeremiah, man. You throw the ball up to him, and they got 2 running backs that'll kill you.
And I'll be really interested to see if you get any matchups between Jack Sawyer and Kelvin Banks.
Sure.
Kelvin Banks, the offensive tackle. You know, I like line of scrimmage play. That could be fun. Sawyer's a lot of fun from a defensive end spot.
Reminder to get your season tickets with Supernovas Volleyball. The opener coming up tomorrow. Omaha Supernovas ready to defend their crown, be a part of history tomorrow night as that championship banner is raised at the CHI Center against the Atlanta Vibe. All-Americans, NCAA champions, Olympians, and more. Pro debuts of local stars. Log on. Get your seats for tomorrow and beyond. Supernovas.com. Gary Barnett coming up hour 2 with Hail Varsity.
The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Back into it. Hail Varsity continues hour 2, and we welcome in Hall of Fame coach at Colorado and Northwestern, Gary Barnett, back with us, talk some college football playoff and look at the bowl season that's been. And, Coach, it's been a while. How's the new year treating you? Thanks for a few minutes.
No, sure, Chris. No, it's been great. I think all the bowls, for the most part, have been spectacular. I mean, teams want to play, and I think we've had great TV, other than probably our bowl. We had great audience, a sellout, and we go lay an egg like we did. And all these other games are close. They're exciting. People want to play. And so they've had their best bowl year ever for people watching the games. And so it's, for college football and what you and I love, it's been great. The whole bowl season, I think it's been great.
Some fun matchups. Nebraska getting things handled in New York City against Boston College. Made it a little bit closer than some Nebraska fans would like, but our audience, Coach, was so celebratory doing that one final post-game show, right? Their reaction show, and folks were just really, really happy that Nebraska won and got to a 7th win and, found a way to make it happen. I'm interested here as you look at this new world of college football, where you need to go and how you get there, specifically with the developmental phase you need and likely have to be on the lines of scrimmage versus the quick flips, what Coach Prime did this year with the Buffs in the portal. We know what Cignetti did with Indiana. That balancing act, Coach, with the fact that your roster is going to have to be 105, and how long do you have a guy hang with you, opposed to when do you cut somebody / process them out? When do you punt on a player in this new world?
Well, I think you've got to use a professional model, and I think everybody who still thinks this is your dad's college football is really stuck under a rock or in a cave someplace, because it's not. It's not even close. And everybody that is going to be successful is going to intelligently use the portal. They're going to get rid of the guys that they have that can't play. You have to expand your organization to include groups of people who do evaluations of players at lower levels and at all the levels of the FBS, and you just have to expand your department, and it's going to eat up a lot of other smaller departments. It's going to eat up in some places it's going to eat up some sports, but you have to manage a roster, and there's 2,200 kids in the portal this year, which is an increase of something like 30%. There's over 1,000 of the 2,200 that have gone in or have signed already. There's 300 kids from the FCS, the championship series, that have gone in the portal. Schools are going to the lower levels and getting the best players. All the players of the year in the FCS and all the freshmen of the year in the FCS have already gone in the portal. So it's just the way it's going to be. And those of us are sitting at the highest level, we say, well, this is how we have to manage, and this is what we have to do. And then think of those guys at the next level down. What any player they get, they're only going to have for that 1 year, and they have to look at it that way. And so I think you're going to get more good players in the lower levels because the upper level schools are going to use the portal. I mean, the average team has 16 players in the portal, and I think the most is Purdue, probably with 30, and then Arizona I think's got 29, and Arkansas is 26, and so that's the way you're going to live. And eventually we'll get a salary cap on this thing, but that's what we're going to have.
Coach, what do you make of the fact that you look at the Final Four teams in the college football playoff, and Ohio State's probably used the portal the most, but none of those teams are going to the portal extensively. You got teams in the playoff this year that did, Arizona State kind of being the prime example, but when you look at the Final Four, it's all teams that have primarily developed internally. Is that do you think a coincidence? Do you think that that's going to start going away, that these portal teams are going to start having success, or are there built-in difficulties to going to the portal hard and then trying to make a run at the college football playoff the next season, the fact that you don't have guys that have played together for a while?
Well, I think you're right, Elijah. I think it's hard to go into it real hard and be able to make a run right away, because you do have to develop players, especially offensive linemen. Now, my wife would tell you that the reason the four teams that are in the playoffs all have the simple uniforms, and uniforms that she can recognize when she turns on the television. So, you think of the four great old name brands, that's who's in the playoffs: Texas, Penn State, Notre Dame, the simplest uniforms. Ohio State plays around with theirs a little bit, but you still know who Ohio State is when you turn it on. So it's really a funny mix, I think.
No, for sure. It's kind of a throwback format here with who is on to the playoffs. We'll get Coach Barnett's take on the playoffs here in the games in just a moment. Coach, I want to talk and get your thoughts on Nebraska and where Nebraska should be in year 3 here. As Nebraska's made the adjustments, they're doing all the things that you kind of just laid out a little bit ago when it comes to staff and evaluation and aggressiveness. But year 3, you've made progress. What's realistic for Nebraska in a third year in this Big Ten that's been pretty impressive?
Well, I think anymore, you don't have to wait 5 years to get to a championship game. I think year 3, if you use the portal right, if you got real assets and you've got the traditions that Nebraska has and the assets, then I think Nebraska should be in a position to push for a playoff spot for the league championship game. I really think you should. They've got a quarterback. They got everything else in place that everybody else is trying to get. You got to get some portal guys. You've got to improve some positions. You have to do it very objectively, and I think that's the hard thing for fans, especially fans in the Midwest, to look at it from a very objective standpoint and realize I have to get a better right guard. I have to get a better left defensive tackle. I got to get a better safety, and I don't care where they're from. I think for the fan base, we all want it to be a little more subjective, a little more, people we know and we've grown up with. But I don't think you can do that. I don't think Matt's going to do that, and I don't think he should. I think, in today's world, it's okay to go do all these things. Nobody's going to look down on you. You go do them, and Nebraska certainly has the resources to go out and do those kind of things.
Coach, with Colorado kind of being the poster child for building through the portal, what lessons do you think that Matt Rhule should take from the Colorado build? Because he is going more to the portal this season. I'm not sure it's to the same level that Coach Sanders did, but what lessons from Coach Sanders' build and how Colorado's season ended up do you think Nebraska can take?
Well, I think, first of all, everybody will go to extremes. I think Colorado has gone to an extreme, and you're going to see them working back the other way. They're taking more high school kids this year. And so there's a happy medium in there somewhere, Elijah. And, we were the extreme, but we were a little less extreme last year, and I think we're going to be less extreme this year. We're going to be more, taking a few more high school kids and thinking about building this thing a little bit more from the inside. Not that it's got to be totally built from the inside. And then you throw in the fact that all these junior college kids that were out of eligibility, all of a sudden now they are eligible. We've picked up 3 kids that would have been ineligible going into next year, but are now eligible because of this junior college ruling that the quarterback from Vanderbilt was able to get done. So. You got a little bit of a wrinkle in here this year. And then after that, this wrinkle sort of smooths out. But I think Nebraska, Dabo Sweeney is a perfect example. He's been way over on the other side of this fence and not going to the portal. All of a sudden, you're going to see him go back into the portal a little bit more than he has. So it's going to even out in there. But Colorado will be coming back, I think, towards the middle. I think, if you look at Nebraska, they've probably been a little bit left of that, or whichever direction you want to call it. And now I think they're going to go more towards picking up a few more portal kids. So I think in the end, success will be those guys who can balance that out. And I'm not sure exactly what it looks like, but it's out there. Penn State may be a perfect example, and Notre Dame. Those two guys, they've got portal kids, but they've got homegrown kids and kids they brought in from high school, and here they are in the playoffs. So, I'd say to some extent Ohio State too as well, but and Texas has used it a little bit. So I think it's just not overuse, but not underuse, being willing to do what you need to do, I think.
Gary Barnett with us, Hall of Fame coach, Hail Varsity Radio. Coach, I want to wrap with the portal talk before we get into the matchup. What's the biggest gap or difference in your eyes from FCS, even G5 to P5 or Power 4? And I ask that because I think there's really, really good linemen that are in the FCS or at some of the non-brand leagues that end up playing on Sundays. Tell me how you evaluate that if you're moving forward and need to beef up or bulk up your offensive or defensive line.
Well, linemen, because you had to go recruit a bunch and you had to see how many were going to make it, and if you needed 15 or 17 linemen to find 5.
Mm-hmm.
Now I don't think you have to do that. Now I think you can go find experienced guys who have learned to play the position at the lower level, and all of a sudden now their value is a lot higher than what it used to be, and so their ability to move up, I think, has been enhanced. No question about it. So yeah, I think I wouldn't be afraid of a quality FCS lineman at all, and I think there's. If we can get enough of those guys to play college football, there aren't enough linemen. There really aren't, and so it's the hardest ones to find, I think. And so you got to be real careful, but at the same time, I think there's a whole boatload of them at the lower level that needs to be looked at.
It's Coach Gary Barnett with us here. And, Coach, let's switch gears here and talk the playoff, as tonight we have Notre Dame and Penn State. Tomorrow night, Ohio State's taking on Texas. And let's start it off with Notre Dame and Penn State. Notre Dame is just a 1-point favorite. Vegas is expecting this one to be close. What do you think?
I agree. I think it's a close game, low-scoring game. Both teams have really, really good defenses. I think Penn State has a little advantage because I think Tyler Warren, and I think the quarterback is a better thrower, although he doesn't have great receivers to throw to. But to get out of a situation, to have to score quickly, I think that Penn State has a little more ability to do that. I like those two running backs at Penn State. Nobody's talked about those guys, but I'm telling you, they are a force. And so I think Penn State just has more to work with, a little more variety, and just as good a defense. Although statistically, Notre Dame and Texas are the two best. But Notre Dame's defense is really good. But I think Penn State overall has a little more to work with. Now, still got to go win the game. And, you look at the quarterback for Notre Dame, and that kid's just a winner. Is he going to throw it 40 times? Nope. But he'll run it on you 20. And he's a good player, and he will keep that team in the game no matter what.
I agree with you. I think you look at Notre Dame's quarterback play. It's just with Riley, he's just found a way. He found a way against Georgia with his legs and didn't turn it over, and I think that's why I'm leaning Notre Dame. Is Notre Dame now, I'm going to ask you this, they're likable? Are they likable now with Coach Freeman?
Oh, I saw that article today, too.
Yeah.
I think so, but they were always likable to a very large population.
Oh, for sure.
It's just those of us who aren't Notre Dame born and bred fans that don't like him. And I think we all resent him a little bit for being able to get what they get without having to hook into a conference for football. I think everybody resents that just a little bit. And I think in the next 2 or 3 years that might change. We'll see. I know James Franklin went after him a little bit on that. But, I think Marcus Freeman's a guy that everybody likes and respects. I think he's really well respected in the business. And so, I think in this day and age of, they're not using the portal completely like a lot of other people are, and I think that enamors fans to Notre Dame. So, I think they are a little more likable.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Gary Barnett with us, Hall of Fame coach, Hail Varsity Radio. Tell me what happens with Ohio State and Texas. I know there'll be some snowblowers involved with the amount of snow and ice that's going to be down there in Dallas.
Yeah, I know. I'll take Ohio State. They're just hitting on all cylinders. You know, that's a team that took advantage of, you know, the fact that they didn't play in the championship game, the fact that they lost to Michigan. You know, they're doing something with that. They're not letting it adversely affect them. It's actually helped them. And I think in the end, when Ryan Day looks back on this season, he's going to say that was probably the most important thing that happened to us, because it gave us a chance to stand up and really look at ourselves and go do something about it. And so I like Ohio State all the way, really.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you that, Coach. According to Vegas, Ohio State's the national championship favorite. Sounds like you're in agreement.
Yep, I am. You know, I think Will Howard's playing at a higher level than he has all year. If that continues, I don't think there's any question.
Gary Barnett with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Coach, we'll holler again. Get your thoughts on the title matchup. Fire up some of those wings like you did last time and enjoy your football. Thanks for a few minutes.
All right, Chris. Great being with you.
Good to spend time with Coach Barnett. A little extended, little overtime with Coach Barney. And you know what? Ohio State and coin flip tonight. Couple of things we touched on and we can tackle here. Open phones till 5:40, and Danny Burke with us here. Burke's Best Bets will lay out some of the gambling angles. But here's the thing about Notre Dame and their cheat code for the CFP. Easiest schedule. Don't have to play a conference title game. Most likely will get a home playoff game, right? They're as a 5 seed. And they don't have to share any of the national championship appearance money, $20 million. To keep that in perspective, you look at the take-home pay for Ohio State, you're going to split 1.1 with the rest of the league. This Notre Dame team is likable because of the Nebraska connections for me with the Rezaks and with Xavier Watts. It's also likable because Freeman is not a dude that acts or feels like or thinks he's special, Elijah. Notre Dame has forever thought they're special. They were told they were special. They were treated special. First TV deal with NBC going back to 91. You've got nostalgia. You've got history. You have tradition. You've got the Golden Dome. You have Touchdown Jesus. And my forever favorite road trip was going to South Bend. And it's right up there with Ireland. I'd love to see Nebraska play Notre Dame in Ireland. I think that'd be the best thing ever. And are you rooting for Notre Dame as a Nebraska fan right now? It's something you maybe have wrestled with in the past, but it's not ever been a wrestling match. You're never going to root for Notre Dame. Nebraska's had some pretty big-time wins over the Irish. But now, shoes on the other foot, and Penn State's a program that, listen, Nebraska's had history with. It's been always a tough ball game there. And the Orange Bowl is a scene, right? It's for two of the old. Penn State forever was one of the last standing independents of college football. Notre Dame dates the ACC, but still gets to play the service academies and hooks up with USC once a year. So, you know what? Notre Dame is more likable to me, but it's because of their head coach, and it's, to me, because of the Nebraskans. Selfishly, kids we've covered at the high school level that have made their way onto the next level and performed at a high level with Watts, and the Rezak boys are really two guys that kicked it into gear at West Side, and that'll be fun to see Notre Dame keep this going because, hey, they got dumped by Brian Kelly.
And one of the other factors here is Notre Dame underdog might not be the right way to put it. You could, because of the way we talked about conference realignment, how it's going to leave Notre Dame to the side, and they're going to be forced to pick a conference. Well, this season has proven that to not be true.
They've got both middle fingers up right now. You think we need a conference, do you?
Well, but one of the factors here with them is I think, they've probably embraced that just a little bit, but it's a team of guys that, not just the way they play, but who they are, they're blue collar. Mm-hmm. And that's absolutely so different from what you expect from Notre Dame. As you talked about, like the uppityness of Notre Dame.
Yeah, the fan, Not every Notre Dame fan's uppity. I'm not saying that because Danny Burke is far from uppity. He's joining us in 10 minutes. He was at the playoff game.
Good save.
Well, no, but I mean, listen.
It's just the feel around that program has an air of pretentiousness.
Well, right. We are special and acknowledge that we're special.
But the team itself
That's
this year...
That's the guy who can't get into Notre Dame academically.
But the team itself this year doesn't feel that way. It feels like a team of blue-collar guys that play the game in a blue-collar kind of way. They're rough and tumble. They want to kick your ass for 60 minutes. They're not going to be talking trash while they do it. They're just going to go out there, get their work done, and it's going to be a win at the end of the day, and they're going to move on to the next one. That's what I like about them, is they play in the kind of that old-school blue-collar way. And I agree. I surprisingly think, based on what I've seen in the playoff from Notre Dame, they are likable.
They order an old style because they like it, not to stand out, to look the part, right?
Well, you said old style. They go whiskey neat. That's the kind of feel I get from them, and not super expensive whiskey neat.
No, they may. I don't want to besmirch any whiskey or any brand, but Notre Dame's the guy sitting at the bar right now that will side eye you, not say a word, but the look says everything. If you
order that whiskey with water,
well, not even the water. If you give me can I get a whiskey and Diet Coke, please? Right?
Yep.
On to the Nebraska part of this, and Grateful Red is in. He says, I rooted for Notre Dame when the Rocket got robbed. I'll remember that, man. Barney was coaching for Colorado then. He was their offensive coordinator and took over for DiNardo that night in the Orange Bowl. They called a clip on Notre Dame. That was a 91 Orange Bowl, 1990 season. And you had Ishmael Rocket take a punt back that would have ended up having Notre Dame beat Colorado. Vic chimes in, says, Evan Williams, cheap but sneaky good. Love it, Vic. Trevor is in as well. So, no, I'm rooting for Notre Dame. I wouldn't care if Notre Dame won the whole bleeping thing, to be honest with you. I am not part of the Go Big Ten conference. To be honest, I like the conference's money for Nebraska. I think the conference is absolutely... Nebraska's not been as good as they've needed to be for the conference, and it's always just been eerily dumbfounding how Nebraska seems to be continually getting hazed by the league. Either officiating-wise, and I sound like a whiner here, I'm sorry, but either officiating-wise or schedule-wise, it's been bull crap.
Yeah, and I'm just generally, it's not because of the Big Ten. I'm just past the point of rooting. Like, at this point in the playoff, give me good football. Whoever wins, wins. If Notre Dame wins tonight, awesome if it's a good game. If Penn State wins in a good game, awesome.
Notre Dame's team, I think you can like. You like some of the parts of the team. You can like Riley at quarterback, finding a way. It's not always pretty. And I think you can like Notre Dame's pass rush. I mean, that's been fun to watch.
To flip it around, though, there's likable aspects of Penn State, too. Their tight end, Warren.
Warren's awesome.
He's got some George Kittle to him. If you haven't watched him by now, you're missing out. But he's loves blocking, got that explosive athleticism from the tight end spot.
Yeah.
Matchup problem. He reminds me of Kittle. I think an NFL team is going to get an absolute dog with Warren. But then they have the running backs that Barney talked about. Singleton, I love him. Carried my college fantasy team last season. He is incredible. The defensive line for Penn State, just the front seven generally speaking, but the defensive line, Abdul Carter, like those guys are fantastic to watch. I think it should be a great game tonight, and whoever wins. I'm not going to be disappointed either way.
This game, the Orange Bowl is a good setting, but let's be honest, this game belongs in the snow with both these teams.
Yeah, it does a little
bit. I mean, a little throwback, a little blue, keep with the blue collar. On the Nebraska front, Elijah, though, we asked Coach Barnett, what should Nebraska be in year 3? And I think he has said the same thing you're going to hear from Matt Rhule, and that they are not going to really run from expectations. In the era of roster flipping, in the era of NIL, in the era of being able to go out and get talent, acquisition, and pay to play, listen, Nebraska's got the pieces there. It's time to to make a jump. Now, listen, Alabama with their resources didn't get in the playoff. Ole Miss with their resources didn't get in the playoff. It's not easy to get into the playoff. 4 of the 18 got in from the Big Ten, so it's not a easy path. It's not a conclusion. You need a little help. You need to be good, and you need to have chemistry. And quite frankly, you need to have guys perform and live up to their ceiling. All that being said, listen, Nebraska, I think, knows that it's not putting undue or unfair expectations on him. You talk to the quarterback, you talk to the head coach, you talk to the offensive coordinator, talk to guys that are now taking on leadership roles on that team. They are not going to probably shy away from talking playoff. Take it week by week, boringly, for sure. So you're not looking ahead and dropping games you're not supposed to. But Nebraska's needs to be at the point in year 3 where you're not losing as a favorite. First of all, you're playing the Penn State game where you beat who you're supposed to beat, and then get yourself to November and see how it shakes out, man.
Well, Matt Rhule's not shying away from the expectations.
He talked about it by year 5 playoff for sure. I mean, that's accelerated.
In that
now.
new facility downtown, there's 3 countdown clocks running at all times. One is the countdown to the next game. One is the countdown to the first round of the next college football playoff, and one is the countdown to the national championship game.
Okay. So
those 3 clocks are
on the
always
board.
running in the team facility. Matt Rhule's not shying away from those expectations. Those are the expectations. At a place like Nebraska, it's playoff, it's national championship.
Sure.
Big Ten championship. Those things.
It's relevancy, as he's talked about in the Big Ten, and he talked about it all offseason leading up to August. And now you work out some kinks. You've got your coordinators. You're going to add that 3rd coordinator at some point, and you've gotten a lot of puzzle pieces, man. You spent the money to go get a guy that just started at Bama at offensive tackle. You've got your 5-star quarterback that played as a freshman, and guess what? He made it through his freshman season. Not that he didn't get some bumps and bruises, but he was not injured to the point where he missed the game. You've retained some key pieces, and you are going to be built for toughness, and you're going to be built for speed. What's the I in the world of gambling say? Danny Burke lays it out for us here. Burke's best bets on the way.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for hanging out. It's Hail Varsity. It's Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Danny Burke with us. Burke's best bet. BurksBeat.com at Danny Burke 5. He has been to see Touchdown Jesus to get the playoff action going for 2024. Saw Indiana, Notre Dame. Saw Nebraska. We will rope Danny into a trip back to Lincoln at some point.
Danny, have your picks been extra blessed since going and seeing Touchdown Jesus?
I guess you could say that, yeah, here and there. It's been a mixed bag, but for the most part, it's been good. So I haven't thought about that perspective, Elijah, but yeah, I guess so.
Pride of Chicago is with us, Danny Burke. Daddy, what say you? We were talking Nebraska year 3 and what it should be. Captain asked the question, if there's any 2025 odds out there for the college football playoff or Nebraska. Don't know. Want a real quick aside from you on what you think year 3 could be for Nebraska football based on how active they are, what they can spend, how they flipped not only the coaching staff but also they're going to get better talent into some key spots.
Yeah, I think talent isn't going to be the big concern here, at least from a further away perspective, and obviously you guys can vouch for that. More so than I can, but everything looks great in the transfer portal so far. In terms of recruiting as well, it seems like they're on the right path. And I know that Rhule has made a note of that, needing to get, and Holgorsen too, right? Needing to get some of those better playmakers, especially in the receiver position. And, I have faith in the defense still staying pretty strong. But the thing to me is the coaching, right? And it's not as big of a question mark with Matt Rhule per se, although there are still some things you see here and there that are very easy to nitpick. And I suppose you can say that with a lot of coaches and programs that have been struggling for quite some time now. But it's with the coordinators. It's on the defensive side, can you replace in the trenches when you're losing a lot of big bodies like Robinson and guys like that? And in the secondary, a lot of those leaders on the team, can those guys be replaced? Can you get those killers on that side of the ball and stay disciplined? Now, we're certainly expecting Raiola to take a step forward. I mean, the kid is 19 and he showed flashes of greatness. And then there are a lot of issues, but that's going to come with the experience that he's going to learn, and then getting a better offensive coordinator in place. We saw the difference that was made there. Now you'll have a full offseason, ideally better players to work with. So, yes, the jump forward has to be there. And I think from a Nebraska fan perspective, I mean, we've all just been so eager for that leap to be there. And knowing what Rhule had done in his second year in programs in the years past, we were very, very anxious and ambitious. And there were games where they should have won. Don't get me wrong. And they should have been a lot better in several spots. But this more so is and I feel like we're dead horse, beating the dead horse saying this, but this has to be the year where they do really at least get in contention for getting into the Big Ten championship game and at least flirting with the idea of getting to the college football playoff. And it's not crazy to say, look what Indiana did. Benefit of an easy schedule. Sure, but why can't Nebraska be in that same realm, especially with the coaching staff that they have, the players they're getting, and just the program that they've been for their entire existence?
Danny Burke with the offseason Kool-Aid for you on a Thursday afternoon. Danny, let's get to the games of the weekend because we got plenty. Some people are calling it the best weekend of football of the year with the college football playoff semifinals and super wildcard weekend. Let's kick it off with the college football playoff. Tonight, Notre Dame, Penn State. Tomorrow, Ohio State and Texas. Let's start it off with Notre Dame, Penn State. This line has moved. Seems that Penn State is now a 1-point favorite with reports of a flu rampaging its way through the Notre Dame football team.
Yeah, this is crazy. So I had not touched the game, and I did end up throwing a little bit on Notre Dame. And I know the reports are coming out about the flu and whatnot, and then the reports to the report is that, well, it's only really affecting the backups and the special teams. How is that possible that it's just, if it's there, that it's only getting to that group? I don't know. Be cautious a little bit with these reports. And I think people are overreacting a little bit. If we just take that out of the equation for just a second, I do like Notre Dame in this game. And I am not I grew up a Notre Dame fan. You guys know this. But in terms of from a betting perspective, I've not been enamored with this Fighting Irish team. But when you kind of look back on everything, yes, the NIU loss was horrid. It was embarrassing. Everything you want to call it, it was that. But at the same time, it's been the best thing for them. And I know we've talked about this in the past. There was the article about it, Freeman and Leonard talking about that. It's going to end up benefiting them down the road. And I do think we're seeing that play out. Now, you could argue that with Penn State being battle-tested as well, but they really haven't done anything to impress me. You lost to Ohio State at home. Sure, Ohio State looks like the best team. I get it. You got beat up by Oregon. That wasn't that surprising. But to me, even though you're able to put up, 25, 30 points, whatever it was, I still am not the biggest Drew Aller guy and not the biggest Franklin guy. Their identity is what they are. They're a tough team, but they're never really able to get over that hump. I'm not saying Notre Dame has, but they proved to me in that game against Georgia, even though it's without Carson Beck, you went into Georgia territory, relatively speaking, and you put on a show and made some great adjustments in that second half. And Penn State, okay, you got past SMU, big whoop. You got past Boise State. All credit to Boise State, but I mean, come on. At the end of the day, they weren't the most deserving team really to be there. By winning, yes, by strength of schedule, we can have arguments for that for days, and they're an entertaining team. And even in that game, there were blips where Penn State kind of had their backs against the ropes, and it was a little uneasy. So I think Notre Dame is ready for the spot. If the flu isn't as impactful as people are making it seem out to be, I think the Irish, with their defense and identity that Freeman has created for them, will find a way to win. Their injuries are a little bit more so is what scares me as opposed to the flu leading into this game. So it's about like a half unit bet for me, but I still do go on the side of Notre Dame here, fellas.
Danny Burke with us, BurksBeat.com, Burke's Best Bets at Danny Burke 5 on Twitter.
No emotional hedge bets from Danny.
No, he has laid it out there. It is all science. All right, Ohio State, Texas, what do you like?
Yeah, and again, when we've had conversations in the past, I told you guys Ohio State was my team I was picking to go all the way, but there really wasn't value on them. I mean, the narrative sets up perfectly. It has set up perfectly, and it's continuing to do so. You had a terrible loss against your arch rival, Michigan, at the end of the year. You got the revenge spot there against Oregon, and they just completely dismantled them. I like Ohio State in this game. I do think they win. There's been a lot of question marks with Texas, but hey, they got to this point, so credit to them. two very good defenses, especially the Longhorns up front, and Ohio State all throughout, number one in EPA on the defensive side of the ball. I like the under in this game. It's moved a little bit, so I want to wait and see if we're going to get it to tick up and see if I can't get a little bit better number there. If I had to with the spread, I would probably take the points with Texas. You're not going to get it up to the 7 realistically. So I'm going to stay away likely from the spread and look to get it from an in-game side and see if I can't get a better number on the Buckeyes. But I do think it's going to be a defensive-oriented spot here, thus liking the under and thus thinking that Texas can't keep it close within that spread, but Ohio State at the end of the day is able to pull this one out. But this should be a hell of a game, and I think the Buckeyes are going to be in a great position to win this whole damn thing.
Danny, 30 seconds, NFL wildcard weekend, anything that you're looking at, either a total or a line?
Or the Broncos.
Hey, I mean, the Broncos are tempting here, Elijah, especially with, in their matchup that they got. I mean, man, it's the Bills' defense has been atrocious, which people aren't talking about enough. So I wouldn't mind taking the points with your Broncos. I love the Eagles if you get them at 4. I know 4 in the hook is out there. You guys know my thoughts on the Packers as a Bears fan and what I've been saying from a betting perspective all year. I also like the Bucs laying 3 or better against the Commanders, who have been falling back to reality, not been looking as seamless as they were at the beginning of the year. So those are probably my 2 top plays right now.
Love it. Danny Burke with us, burksbeat.com, Stochastic and Odd Shopper. Find Danny both spots online and follow him on Twitter at DannyBurke5. Pride of Chicago will holler next week. Thank you much.
Sounds like a plan, guys. Take care.
Appreciate it. Steak and a beer bet on the way.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time, big thanks to Danny Burke, Gary Barnett, and Brandon Vogel with us here on a Thursday. Always take us with the podcast for you, Hail Varsity Radio's How You Search. Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, the entire show or the segments you want to hear. Can also download, like, and subscribe to Hail Varsity YouTube, 489-1240 to get in. And time for some predictions. Reminder to get buckled up. Use your seatbelt. It saves lives. It prevents injuries only if properly worn. Make it click. A message from the NDOT Highway Safety Office. So we are going to lay it out. Are we going to just make score predictions? Are we both on the Irish train tonight? Or are we doing steak and a beer?
The flu. I know it doesn't concern Danny, but it concerns me. So I'm not sure I'm on the Irish, actually.
Okay, so steak and a beer. Am I giving you the one?
Now we'll just go pick 'em. If we're gonna do this,
Okay.
we're gonna do pick 'em. I came into this show fully expecting to pick Notre Dame. The flu reports worry me. Is that just like message board fodder that's going around, or is there something to that? Because if there's legitimately flu,
on 3 reported. This will also maybe make you say, Schmidt, get me the T-bone, the old 96er. Pete Thamel is field level. And you have Jeremiah Love, that stud back for one of the 1-2 punch for the Irish. He's in warm-ups, testing out a not as bulky, but he's got a bit of a brace on that right knee. All right, so he's not 100%, but he's going to start tonight. Unfortunately, the Irish are in their road white. I was hoping for the navy blue, or at least give me the emerald green Jerome Bettis Sugar Bowl jerseys. They didn't. But no, I'll take Notre Dame. I think 20-17 Irish.
Okay. For those that listen to Schmidt and I's other show, the Average Joe Sports Show, you know I picked Notre Dame based on new information today. And for the sake of this segment, I'm going to flip it around and I'm going to go Penn State. I think it's going to be a close ball game. I don't trust James Franklin at all in a close ball game, but I also don't trust a team that is maybe riddled with the flu. So give me... I hate to do it because I really think Penn State should win this... Notre Dame should win this football game. But give me Penn State, and give me Penn State in a close one, 21-20. Let's go very close.
No, I think your first team to 20 wins. Captain is suggesting I do some shoulder rolls. I will work on that. Captain's pull the string, Elijah. Do it. Captain's pulling for Penn State, or at least thinks Penn State will win. I don't know if we ever truly pull for Penn State. And there's a lot of you that, who knows if you truly pull for Notre Dame. But I do remember pulling for Notre Dame something fierce against Colorado in the Orange Bowl.
See,
way back when.
Way back when. The beginning of my Notre Dame era was like, is that Jimmy Clausen?
Yeah, Jimmy had the he went second round, didn't he?
First round.
It was late first round. Panthers, right?
Yeah.
He bounced around. It was the Charlie Weiss era.
Way back.
Where Charlie's signing bonus was Hostess cupcakes.
Schmidt said it, not me.
And a gallon of gravy. Let's just keep piling on for Uncle Charlie. The other Uncle Charlie. Not our Uncle Charlie. Back at you at 4 tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in and subscribing. Hail Varsity YouTube. And we'll see who shakes it out tonight.